At LSI, we don't just follow trends, we help shape the future. Welcome to Behind the Win, the podcast where we break down the biggest moves in tech, innovation, leadership, and government contracting. Here at LSI, we're bringing you exclusive conversations with the minds behind groundbreaking advancements, disruptive strategies, and industry-defining wins. From retail to tech, defense to government solutions. This is where you get the insights to stay ahead. Let's go behind the win.
Welcome to Behind the Win, the podcast that goes inside the minds of leaders shaping business, government, and innovation. Today's guest is Chaitali Patel, founder and CEO of Evergood Impact. Chaitali is an entrepreneur, investor, and advisor who has built her career at the intersection of finance, innovation, and purpose. From her leadership with the 100 Women in Finance to launching Evergood, she brings a rare blend of expertise and lived experience to building organizations that align capital with community impact. Chaitali, thanks for joining the podcast today. We're excited to have you. Start us off, just for listeners too, what inspired you to launch Evergood and what was the problem you were trying to solve in the early days by doing it?
Yeah, like many women and men, start out entrepreneurship journey for a variety of calling, reasons, purposes. Some people have innate drive, innate calling to go on their own. In my case, as a military spouse, I started my own business out of pure necessity to not have to look for a job again. I, at one point, before I started Evergood, had been on 200 interviews in my career at that point, being a military spouse, having to move around, right? So I myself started that journey out of necessity, which ended up became my identity. But many men and women start out for a variety of reasons, including freedom, calling, wanting to serve certain mission, product fit that is not there, they want to bring forth into the market. Very many reasons. I started out of necessity. I didn't even know I had it in me to be an entrepreneur.
That's amazing. And for listeners also, tell them a little bit about what Evergood is.
When I launched Evergood, I saw a wave of sort of mission-driven investments coming into the market, whether the investment or capital went into nonprofit or for-profit. I knew that the sentiment of investor, so quote unquote investor, was changing, and they wanted to see more intangible return on that investment. So I launched Evergood to sort of help investors articulate whether they're nonprofit donors or grant makers or actually ROI-driven investors in capital markets. I started Evergood to help those people, those investors, sort of understand the intangible impact and intangible returns on their investments. On the other hand, I wanted to help nonprofits and for-profit, mission-driven, benefit, public good-driven companies sort of help articulate their non-material, non-financial impact into the community, on their customers, on their employees. And so I thought that there was a space that was opening up for companies and sort of business strategies to sit in between those two parties, those two distinct parties, investors and in companies, mission-driven companies, to help them sort of bridge that communication gap. So that's why I launched Evergood. And that's what we started out doing, a lot of impact articulation, impact-driven measurement for profits, nonprofits. Over a certain period of time, the company sort of organically evolved into doing more of servicing around financial markets, capital markets, private equity markets, because the need was sort of increasing there. So yeah, that's sort of my journey over launching Evergood in early 2018.
So do you have a background in finance? Is that what you're educated in, or you just saw this need and self-educated too?
So the subject matter expertise, I had to self-educate, but I had enough foundational. My background in finance is in credit analysis. I'm a risk analyst type of by training person. And so I understood the material risks that affected any given organization. And I also understood the sort of non-financial impacts on the communities as a just person living, working, breathing, as a woman, mother, military spouse. Like my holistic life journey had allowed me to understand that there is non-financial impact on certain investments that you cannot just measure. And so for me, I sort of had the enough financial, technical background and knowledge to bring forth into some new, by the way, the industry or that particular segment of industry is still not in a mature phase. It's still in an infancy. So having to go into sort of completely new market and having to one educate everyone what this is, and two then having to do it was very, very exciting in the beginning for sure.
Yeah, and I think the need for this, I mean, that you saw, we see it so much today in what LSI does, right? With helping companies. We do government contracts ourselves, but we also have a BD arm that helps our clients do that. And there's all sorts of do they need a VC? Do they need gap funding? Do they need, I mean, there's so much around it that as an entrepreneur, they're starting out and then they don't know what the hell, they're like, and then there's this whole other side of this finance and funding that they have no clue of.
Yeah, yeah. And you need people, you need folks like us to actually, if you especially have a new product or you have a new idea or you have a new strategies you want to launch, you do need people to help communicate to your investors, your customers. Trust me, we're on like anytime you're trying to do something, and that's the beauty about and this is why like entrepreneurs are my favorite people. They're so in the forefront of everything that in their particular discipline, whether you're doing defense technologies or you're doing healthcare technologies, doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. These people, this set of people are so far ahead out in their field that rest of us sometimes have a hard time seeing what they see. So it's
Yeah.
very nice to have even your company, people like my company, to help them sort of normalize some of the vision, some of the things that they're seeing. Like they are so passionate and so excited to bring that excitement and that energy into something concrete, and having partners like ours to help them communicate that to their customers and investors is just very helpful. Especially in your space, you do deal a lot with public market entities, whether it's government, state, local, municipalities. It's just so nice to have folks like us helping them communicate that they're making real impact, like their vision has real impact on future of whatever the communities that these folks are sort of stewarding.
Yeah. And when you say that, we had a client a few years back that their technology for, the warfighter was amazing. But every time we had them set up, capabilities briefings or whatever, the folks would say, I need you guys to take it from 2 hours and give it to me in, 5-10 minutes. Like I still don't understand or what the next step. So I think you guys doing that, it fulfills such a need for sure. As a founder and a mother, how has that shaped your leadership style and decision making?
Well, so I encourage, so my new mission, I'm very proud of what I built with Evergood. My new mission since having launched Motherboard just last year, it's definitely like it's become my center. I think the mission with Motherboard, I think it's like sort of a pet project right now. It hasn't really even taken a shape as a company or anything like that. But I think that has a much larger, broader vision and a mission to it, then actually Evergood really allowed me to become this entrepreneur myself, having to do financial statements. By the way, my accountants are in Utah. It
I
allowed
love
me
that.
to sharpen my skills as an entrepreneur, lots of ups and downs, a lot of things. I mean, I could go on and on, hours and hours, and talk about good, bad, and the uglies of entrepreneurship. But that allowed me the real skill set of being an entrepreneur. I think my bigger purpose, if you ask me, going forward, um, in remaining of my life, is this sort of mission to bring forth many. You specifically mentioned motherhood. I think that women, as your mom, I'm a mom, I think women have this sort of completely untapped skill set, completely untapped pool of resources, our sort of collective knowledge and wisdom. It's been totally like there are so many people sitting on the sideline because we were not able to. In my case, I told you I started out entrepreneurship as a necessity, but many women are just unable to do that 9 to 5. Like our school systems don't allow you to work 9 to 5 somewhere because the school hours are
Yeah.
shorter than the work hours. So many women are just on the sideline. If we can enable, if we can sort of tap into that pool of women who are just home and wish that they could do something part-time, they could do something flexible. I think that in women themselves being so agile and so flexible, like they're perfectly suited to be entrepreneur, right? So if you sort of help a lot of moms find their way to vocation through entrepreneurship, where they can sort of dictate how much money they want to make, how much time they want to spend, how they want to raise their families. If you can enable that, it even has a much bigger impact where women won't be thinking in zeros and ones or zero sum sort of perspective as to kids or no kids, kids or job, right? We want to eliminate that competitive sort of thinking. And you could say, you could have it all. You just can't have everything at the same time in a quantity at the same time, but you could have kids and have a little bit of career, and then when the kids are gone you can have a lot of career. But I think that the entrepreneurship, like the motherhood, sort of enables that way of living for women where they're not completely at home and not being able to sharpen their sort of minds and vocational skills. But I say if they can find a business that they're doing, a few $1,000s a month while they're raising their kids, I think that's a very noble cause. It doesn't make sort of where everybody's talking about sort of childbirth rate completely dropping and population declining. I think we can solve that with having women, giving them some flexibility, of course, to go to work in a jobs, but also through having some sort of part-time scaled back way of creating their vocational sort of intuitions into the market. So I think there's a lot of, I think my mission there is much bigger. I don't know in my lifetime I'm ever going to be able to execute on it, but I think I'm on a right path. And if somebody else picks up my baton and does it in the future, it's great. But I think I'm on to something there that moms have to have an outlet to do something vocational. Our ancestors have always done something vocational while they have raised their families and taken care of their communities. So if you don't do something vocational, I don't think you're fully fulfilled. So I think that's, to me, like, see, I can very passionately talk about Motherboard and its mission all day long. Like I'm a huge believer in moms doing something.
So do you think that that idea came from a lot of you being that military spouse? And I know that that's tough, right? We work with some organizations, and when they're kind of the sole caregiver, if they're deployed or whatever that looks like, they've, like you said, 200, you went on 200 interviews or applications. That's what they're still seeing, is that everyone's like, oh, I don't want to hire you. You're only going to be here for 2 years, or I have to be really flexible with your schedule. So do you think that that helped you kind of find purpose with that?
Yeah, definitely. I was a huge advocate. I'm still huge advocate for military spouses. I think it's a vastly under recognized, under appreciated talent pool. We're so versatile, right? We're so agile. You can tell us and we will move mountains with very little resources. So that's like, so I'm always a huge advocate for the community, like military spouse community. And I'm not sure, Sean knows my history, but when I was at Blue Star Families, my predominant reason to go there and to work there out of finance, and it was my only and first nonprofit job. And I went there to do just that, to advocate for military spouses. And then military spouses are also moms. And I think so. The mission and purpose is that economic stability and sort of economic prosperity is not only for men, or it's not only for certain segment of populations who doesn't serve. And to me, economic prosperity and economic stability sort of also is women's right And not only women's right, but military spouses' right. Like it's everyone's right, right? So,
Absolutely.
and you get that through your vocation, certainly.
Yes. And Josh did, we have, for those listening, we have a mutual friend, Josh. He did give me the history on the Blue Star families. I think that's amazing. I just got asked to join the board here on the Utah chapter. Went to my
Very nice.
first meeting Monday. So yeah, I'm excited. I love what you've started and what they do there. It's amazing.
Very nice. Very nice.
So many entrepreneurs struggle with capital. We've been talking about that a little bit. What do you see as the most underutilized strategies for unlocking funding at scale?
I think if it's to me, I can sort that question in three different buckets. So there are three buckets of capital, right? So you have private capital that is very financially driven. So I give you money, you give me more money back, right?
Yeah.
And there's a second set of bucket of capital where I believe in what you're doing, and I am going to make long-term investment into what you're doing, and I am sort of unmoved by, or I'm sort of unaffected by whether you give me my money back or not. So that's private grants, that's private donors. So there's that. The third pool of capital, which is I think something in between, where you have the private capital, whether it's a pure grant or private capital that's pure investment, you are looking at a singular party's ability to take risk based on what you're telling them. So that's that, right? So it still depends very much on individuals' ability to assess your mission, your ideas, your execution as a risk factor. Well, there's a third part of that sort of equation. A third bucket is your public funding. I believe that in a sort of Democrat Republican, like Republic sort of a political system where we elect people on behalf of ourselves. I think that the money we sort of contribute in way of our taxes, we should allocate some of those monies and make it available to invest into sort of entrepreneurs or mission-driven people that is sort of alleviates burden from the founders and entrepreneurs from having to rely on someone's singular ability to take a risk on your mission. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a place for this collective that can say, because the scale is so much bigger with collective, like everything is so much bigger, right? So many of us contribute revenue to governments in way of taxes. So the scale is so much bigger. So many people can be funded rather than sort of one at a time by somebody making one at a time decision. So scale is so much larger. So I think that if we were to start businesses, if we were to build innovative technologies, if we were to sort of invest into big ideas around social innovation, I think my personal opinion is that the bulk of that funding, initial funding, that investment should come from something that is much, much larger than private investors, private donors. That is your public-private partnership. That's your public-private investments through your starting with your municipality, state, federal government. I think that if we want to see, everyone talks about income asset equality. If we want to fuel a lot of innovation, a lot of economic prosperity that is more evenly sort of distributed, I would say that is the biggest lever as a society, as a nation we can pull. And then as those things sort of prove themselves, then we can depend on private donors, and go from there. But to me, I do believe there is a room for public-private partnerships to scale up a lot of different ideas and technologies, and then let private sector take it from there. It also helps private sector.
Absolutely. You've been active in 100 Women in Finance and other networks. How have these communities supported your journey?
I would say 100 Women in Finance brought me a lot of business. It was a great, like women tend to be very communal. They're very community oriented. Women tend to just, it's in our nature to be nurturing around our communities. So I would say 100 Women in Finance really helped me with my business development goals. People sent me places. I have a friend of mine who runs a conference company, and she put me on like 22 conference panels in between 23 and 24, like for those 2 years, like every conference
Wow.
she held in private market, she's like, Chai, I'm going to put your company and you on every panel everywhere. So that's my community sort of, and I didn't have to pay for it, right? So that's my community supporting me and saying, I'm going to make room for you. You have a startup company. I'm going to support you. So in that sense, I benefited quite a bit through, and that's not the only community. Of course, I love that community and I've been deeply involved with it. But there are other communities, like my military family community supports me and have always supported me. And so, yeah, but 100 Women in Finance, definitely. My 100 Women in Finance people have put me in front of people that I couldn't even dream of getting in front of.
What advice would you give to other women, founders, entrepreneurs that are looking to sort of activate networks for growth, like something you just mentioned?
I think I would certainly recommend, which this is something that I learned through personal experience. As women, we are sort of it's our nature to be sort of um, community driven in a way where we don't want credit to ourselves, or we don't like to brag about ourselves, or we feel like if I'm going to take up too much room, right? Like, am I going to say too much? How will it seem to we are very like sort of equality based type of people because we sort of have that background in our DNA. And I say that, so there's a lot of shame attached to speaking out for yourself, or there's a lot of shame attached to asking for business, asking for things, right? And I say that I've learned over time, and I think having that motherhood identity, being a wife identity has allowed me to have less shame that I'm not asking for this gift, whether it's a business or I'm asking you for a favor. I'm not asking on my behalf, but I'm asking on a behalf of the community, because whatever you give me, I'm going to turn around and spread it to other people. Like, I'm going to do good with it. So I think adopting that mentality to not have shame around asking for business, or asking for speaking slot, or asking for favor from somebody for business purposes, I have become more and more sort of a person of a thought that I have the responsibility to, as a woman, like men always have adopted the mentality that they have a responsibility to ask for business so they can take it and then help other people. And I think we as a women have to do that too. Like, we have a responsibility on behalf of other people in the community to do better, like make our businesses better, make more money for our businesses, make more money for our families, make more money for our communities. So then we can help, right? So I feel like it took me a long time to understand that when I go out on social media or ask for things or brag about myself or promote myself or promote my company, those things are part of my responsibility and I must do it. So my advice to young women especially, forget the shame, forget the guilt, forget ask, brag about yourself, and it's because your communities depend on you to be successful.
I love that. I am not young, but you are speaking to me because I laugh because we were just talking about this a few weeks ago, is that when I am in groups, right, and they're like, "What do you do?" I mean, I literally say, "Oh, I work in government contract." I will lead them to believe I am the janitor here, right? I don't ever come out and say I'm CEO. I run a company. I have
Yeah.
190 employees. You know what I mean? It's funny to me because if they ask my husband, he has no problem saying, "Oh, she's CEO, she does this, she's a badass, this," you know. But for me, I downplay what I do when I'm not in business settings.
Yeah, yeah,
So
we have a responsibility, right? Like I'm like you too. I am embarrassed to talk about me, or I'm embarrassed to talk about my success, like how far I've come, and those sort of things. But now the more older I get and more responsibilities I have, people come to me to raise money for the charities. People come to me to buy their gala tables, and I'm like, I must do better so that I can say, yes, I'll buy your gala table. I'll write a check for your charity, right? I'll hire you. I'll pay for your internship. We have a responsibility to community, and of course to do financially for ourselves too. So my grandkids benefit from it. So it's all good. It's no shame in that. It took me a long time to get here.
Absolutely.
It took me a long time to get here.
So your career spans finance, advisory work, and entrepreneurship. What experiences for you have translated best into your founder role?
I would say overall, um, I think marrying my husband changed my life, because up until that point, my identity was sort of singular, that I was a daughter, or I was a sort of immigrant trying to find my way into professional world. But I think marrying somebody like that, and I say somebody like that, meaning that somebody who also chose a career to serve, right,
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to also serve and become somewhat more broader in my thinking, that I had responsibility. I had sort of a way of living that was greater and larger than what I had initially thought for myself, because I thought, oh, I'm going to be a very successful finance woman and yada, yada, yada. But I never thought that my identity or my existence would mean something bigger than, and he allowed me to certainly do that. But I had to think really selflessly in times. When I met him, I said, I'm going to be bank CEO, you know. And then I had to really humble myself through that journey, that I was never going to be bank CEO. That was not my calling, because I was going to have an opportunity in return to serve people, serve communities, become military spouse, live in exotic places like Hawaii, come to Utah, serve people of Utah, serve people of Hawaii. So I got to have a much bigger identity, and it sort of made me now everything I say, as you can see, has some sort of connectivity around how I can serve other people. I was never a selfless thinker like that before I met him. Like I always think of like, how can I help other people? I was never that person. So I think that has changed me the most.
I love that theme. Do you have a daily habit or practice that helps you stay grounded as both a leader and a parent?
Yes, exercise. I would say I walk, summertime, I try to get to 15,000 steps a day, and I exercise. I do, you name it, Pilates, yogas, weightlifting, you name it. Fitness is like my name of the game. Without it, I would be a crazy person. So fitness is like my definite thing every single day, 7 days a week.
Love that. Finally, what if someone wants to learn more about Evergood or motherhood, any support, around your work or find out what you're doing, where should they go to find out?
They can go to LinkedIn. I'm there, Chai Patel Robinson. I'm sort of somewhat activated on X lately. I'm there. I'm on Instagram. I'm everywhere. Like you can just Google me and you find me. Motherboard.work. So Motherboard has a landing page. Evergood Impact has a landing page. You can find me. I don't think I'm a very public person, so you Google me and you'll find me. But LinkedIn,
Love it.
definitely connect me on LinkedIn.
Okay. Shai, this was such a great conversation. Thank you for jumping on and telling us, your experience in entrepreneurship and leadership and as a military spouse. I think it's going to resonate a lot with our listeners. So thank you very much.